Hello and welcome to the third in a new series of podcasts from the Entrepreneurs Forum, Talking Future, where we talk to the North East's entrepreneurs about their work, their lives and especially their views on the future and how they are innovating as they plan ahead. I'm Yvonne Bell and today I'm talking to Karen Winterhalter, Chief Executive Officer of Onyx Health. Karen started her career as a learning disabilities nurse before moving into the pharmaceutical industry and then global healthcare marketing communications, where she held jobs with some of the biggest agencies in the business and counselled many global pharmaceutical companies through the complexities of launching products across the world, with some of these campaigns bringing real change to how a disease is managed. Onyx Health was set up in London back in 2003, following a burning passion to deliver marketing and communications campaigns that would make a real difference to the growth of the healthcare business. And then, later, when she decided it was time to leave London and return to the North East, she merged the business into another company, took the Onyx Health name with her and started afresh in Newcastle. That was in 2010, and today Onyx Health has 15 staff, a stellar portfolio of clients, and has recently been nominated by the Sunday Times as one of the companies to watch in the North East. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, Yvonne.
So you started on the front line in healthcare, really, didn't you? What was it that sparked your passion to move out of that and to go into big business? Because it's a big jump.
It was a huge jump, but you know what? I was on night shift one night and I opened up the Nursing Times and it said, "Can you sell pharmaceuticals?" And I thought, yes, I could do that. And that was it. I just realized I just needed to be more than a nurse.
And how old were you then, if you don't mind me asking?
About 23.
Oh, right. So you were quite young.
I had qualified for a year and I used to work in a hospital, but learning disabilities moved out in the community and it just wasn't established in those days. And it just wasn't, I was not really doing what I'd been trained to do. So I just needed a new challenge.
So from that leap, what was the sort of like a potted version of what happened after that?
Oh, well, first of all, when you go into the pharmaceutical industry, the thing you do, we call it walk the bag, which is where you walk around GP surgeries trying to get access to them and sell products. And I sold products in Sunderland and Gateshead and Newcastle, North Tyneside. I was, that Northeast rep. Yeah. I loved that, but I also loved the more wheeling and dealing and the contract negotiation. So I moved into hospital repping, and I had a fantastic boss at the time who said to me, "I'm going to do the best thing ever for you. I'm going to persuade you to go and live in Bristol." Oh. And I was 24 and off I went to Bristol to work in the south. I had a beautiful territory. I had all of the southwest coast, all along the Dorset, Southampton, Portsmouth, Oxford. It was fantastic. And then they gave me South Wales as well, just that. But I was hugely successful. I became key account rep of the year, company rep of the year. I just loved my job. I loved selling. Yeah. And when I was there, the company I worked for actually identified me as this rising star, and they paid for me to go to the West of England University to study marketing, communications and advertising.
All right. Big change from frontline nursing, isn't it? So you'd gone away from that.
It was, but it was also I was doing a lot of medical education. So at the time we were trying to help hospitals understand how they could manage diabetes and type 2 diabetes better. Mm-hmm. And in those days, when you had type 2 diabetes, you still used to go to hospital. And this was the era of everything changing and moving out to primary care. And so we were running programs or developing programs to help educate GPs about primary care. And I think that's where my love of medical education came from. And that was really the start of everything I do now.
Yeah. So at what point did you, and it must have been a few years, I suppose, where you moved out of those companies and decided to do something yourself? I mean, that was obviously later on, wasn't it?
It was. Well, I took another step after that. Again, I'm probably a bit of a risk taker. I saw a job for a medical education person, PR person, in a fertility company, and I took a step out of that and went and took that role in London or Hertfordshire. Stayed there for a couple of years, and in those days, nobody talked about fertility. It was a hush-hush thing. Alison Murdoch, who's at the Centre for Life, was hardly known. She was one of the very first NHS fertility experts that there were. And we ran programmes about educating people about fertility. Again, it's that medical education side thing. I did that for a couple of years, and then I moved into agency life.
Right.
And that's really when everything in my career just absolutely took off. And that's when I went global. And I did that for 5 to 6 years. And there was a whole group of us who were all working in the big agencies. And we all were just chatting to each other. And each one of us went off and set up their own agency. And that's how it all starts, really. So
there was a sort of a peer group thing where you thought, we're all going to do this.
There was a peer group thing. I think we were all just ready to do something different and bring something fresh, because every now and then I think the market needs to be revitalised.
Yeah, it sounds like you were in the thick of it.
I certainly was, and it was fun. It was great fun.
Yeah. So that was all down in the south, and you actually set up Onyx Health at that point, did you, or was it a group of you set it up, or?
It was me on my own. I was very, very fortunate that one of the directors from my former company, who I got on incredibly well with, he'd also set up a public affairs company right opposite Westminster.
Wow.
And he said, come in here, sit in an office with me. I've got space. And I went in there. So we had fantastic offices to start. And then gradually I employed a few people, got to about 7 people in that office, and then we moved to another one in Whitehall, and it was good fun, but we were very focused on working with big pharma, and I don't think that was where my passion was. My passion's with SMEs.
All right. Is that because you get a closeness to them? You can be closer to the people.
Yes, you can be closer to the people. You're working at CEO level. You're also working. You have to. It has to work. You have to show the return on investment. When you're working with very big pharma, these guys had £4-5 million marketing budgets that were handing over, and the accountability was virtually zero. So I was enjoying what I was doing, but I wasn't really enjoying what I was doing. So life all changed when I came up one September to run the Great North Run, and which I did every year.
Get your roots then.
Get back to my roots. I tell you, the train from London for the Great North Run weekend is the best train in the world.
Everybody's got their shorts on ready.
Just fantastic. The Sunday night's even better. But I came up, and we also spent some time with my sister and my nieces up here that weekend. And on the train back, me and my husband just looked at each other and went, what are we doing? What are we doing? And in fact, because we could do it, 8 weeks later, we moved up here.
Oh, right. So you knew it was going to happen.
We just knew. And literally we came back, we just put our house up to rent. It went 3 days later, so we had no choice. And then that was it. We were up here.
Yeah. And I believe you got a good rental offer. You rented a good house, didn't you?
We did. I certainly did. I've lived in several footballers' houses, but Sam Allardyce's house was the main one we lived in. So when he resigned from Newcastle United, on the steps of the house, that was the same house I rented.
Really? How interesting. So then, obviously, so that was a big move for you, and you didn't bring any of the customers with you, though, did you? You started afresh in Newcastle. Is that right?
Absolutely, started from scratch.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anyone. In fairness, if I'm being honest, I didn't really understand the allied science and healthcare sector up here. I didn't even know it existed. I was just thinking I would just continue to work with on a consultancy basis with London-based people. That's what I thought I would do, and I certainly had those contacts, which I did work with. But then Mike Nichols, who's now at New Cells Biotech, he was running Cells at the time. and Albie Patterson as well, some well-known names in the Northeast, actually heard about me and contacted me. And that was it. They've both really been key supporters of what I've been trying to achieve.
Yeah. So in that time, obviously, it's no different to anybody starting off a new business, except you had the contacts, and that's a big thing, isn't it? The contacts are a big thing. But how, as you got on, how have you found that the business changed over the years? Did it change once you got up here? The type of work that you did obviously would have changed, but did you find there were obstacles that you struggled with a bit, or was it fairly straight sailing?
I don't think anyone that starts a business up is straight sailing. You have many, many sleepless nights, especially when you start employing people and you want to make sure the income's coming in. I was very fortunate because we do something quite unique and there was nobody else up here doing it, and the health and life science sector was really starting to shape and take off here. And especially when you wanted, for those companies that want to sell products into the NHS or any healthcare supplier, that is what we do. So we had a very unique proposition.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that was hugely beneficial to us.
Mm-hmm. So that had to grow, didn't it? Because there's nothing going backwards in the national health. It's all going forward.
I will say I did kiss a lot of frogs in the early days. Not many of them turned into handsome princes.
So in your opinion, what do you think the face of your industry is going to be like? I mean, obviously, you've come through a lot of strange times, but what do you think it's going to look like in a few years' time? Maybe 5 or 10 years. You'd be looking ahead all the time? And what are the big things that are coming up? What are you doing at the minute that sort of sets you apart?
I think we've all had to take a step back and put our COVID lens on. That's the big thing we've had to do. We've been talking for a long time about having a golden thread of digital communications through the agency. And I mean by digital communications, I don't mean SEO, I don't mean pay-per-click advertising, which a lot of digital comms companies do. Or what we are looking at is how do we connect remotely with customers? How do we use digital technologies to help patient care? How do we ensure that our customers can talk remotely to their customers, especially now that the reps and their trainers can't get access to hospitals? So that's been something we've been looking at, and we've come up with some different types of programs to adapt to that. We've also been looking very much at how patient care is going to be delivered in the future. And about 18 months ago, I probably wrote a blog. I did write a blog on looking at how wearables and how doctors will all be talking to patients remotely, and how wearables will be feeding our data back into central hubs for people.
What are wearables?
Like an Apple Watch.
Oh, sorry.
An Apple Watch, as simple as that. You can check your heart. People are already looking at arterial fibrillation on your Apple Watch, and that'll be much, much more. Things that will be able to be monitored. And I know it sounds a bit big brother, but for example, even how you take a drug, if you have somebody who's living in the community with schizophrenia and they miss a dosage of the drug, if that gets picked up, somebody can get in touch with them, or a CPN can get out to them to make sure they're taking their next doses. So you're preventing all these relapses, and a lot more is going to be happening. I mean, who would ever believe, like today, consultants are sitting at home contacting their patients either on a video call or via telephone calls to discuss operations. Go back 6 months ago, it was discussed, but would it ever happen? COVID's come along and it's all changing. And it'll just accelerate. It will really accelerate. And I think are we going to see, and this is just me blue skying, okay? Nobody in the NHS has said this, but are we going to see big data centres or call type centres where you have a team of frontline people who are monitoring patient care and different things happening remotely to a patient, so they're not actually in a hospital? And it's more about healthcare prevention as well.
Which is it's a money saver, isn't it, ultimately?
It's ultimately a money saver. And what's been fantastic in all this, all the digital projects that were all sat and being discussed by the NHS and all the different business groups have all been funded, and they're all happening now, happening at a massive rate of acceleration. So it's really good, and you've got to keep up with that. You've got to be in the middle of it.
Yeah, and keep it going. And so is this is virtual reality we're talking about, isn't it?
It is. There's an element of virtual reality in it. I mean, it's remote monitoring. Virtual reality, I think, comes in more for the clinician and the doctor when they're learning about things. So companies have trialed this a little bit, but virtual reality of how you treat a disease, how you undertake an operation, is a great learning curve, or just actually putting the doctor in to be the patient, how the patient feels. There's again some fantastic VR experiences. I keep talking about schizophrenia, but these are the ones I've seen, and these are the ones that have been developed for a long time. Parkinson's disease, lots of neuromuscular disease problems, where the clinician can actually experience what's going on. But if you took a junior doctor into an operation or into something they had to learn about, and they were there, and you would see how they were performing the technique. This is where everything's going now.
Yeah, and I suppose that it takes away the white coat syndrome as well from people, doesn't it? Because the doctor can come to your house and see how things are in a normal setting for you.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, white coat, high blood pressure, all those things like that. And you're finding now, I heard a quote the other day that every week 2,500 patients are diagnosed with cancer in the UK. And where have all those patients gone? Because they're not going to GP surgeries because of COVID. They're not going to hospitals. The Royal College of Surgeons have just put some things out saying that when they're contacting patients about their hip replacements, they're saying, "Oh, I'll just wait another year."
And before that, they wouldn't.
No, never at all. So we've had a big change, big change.
So this is local now. Are you working mainly locally, because you said you were in the global field. This could, your training side of it could be a global or a national, certainly a national thing.
It can be. In fairness, we do work with a lot of Northeast companies, but we spread our reach into the Northwest because of the great elderly parks and things like over there. But we're now more of a national company. We get a lot of inquiries from Germany. We appear very high on SEO in Germany. But I think that's because of my last name.
Is it German?
It's actually Hungarian, but that's what we put it down to.
Well, use what you've got. Use what you've got.
Exactly. So we do, and we've just partnered with a US company that gives. First of all, we've got clients who want to go into the US market. So we've partnered with somebody that will help them grow in. So the companies in the Northeast now that are saying, well, I need more reach over there. We've now got dare I say, an air bridge to take them over. A very safe air bridge as well, with a company who I've known for a long lot of years, who also work with SMEs as well. So that big financial gulp isn't there. We're also getting vice versa. They've got companies who they are based in America who want access to the UK, and we're introducing them to it. We have just also introduced them all to our fabulous support services in the Northeast, because we've got some great video guys up here. We've got some great other digital guys, the VE guys as well, that we're working with. We're actually we kind of try to network with everybody and promote them as well as us.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I was going to come back to the Northeast, because I said at the beginning that Onyx was recognised as one of the Sunday Times Want to Watch companies. Now that's quite an accolade, isn't it?
It was an accolade. It was an accolade. They basically came up to really do a review of the whole Northeast. We're looking at the business cities of the future, and there was a whole review of Newcastle, and they spoke to lots and lots of companies, and we got named as one of the ones to watch, which was very exciting. Very exciting for us.
Great for the Northeast as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and there were some great people in there, you know, and the whole article was very good for the Northeast. It really showed what we are all doing up here.
Yeah, and so they don't forget us.
They will never forget us.
Yeah. So in your career, as things have adapted and changed, have you had to do that with it, or does it just come naturally?
I think it comes naturally because I'm very adaptive to whatever happens. But if we took, in my career, I started off very much as a PR person. So you know, this is when we were in the media relations was a big thing, and we had such access to the media. It was phenomenal. Now, you know, the media in healthcare, in pharmaceuticals, and that has virtually closed down. It's very, very hard to get coverage. So you have to look at other channels of communication. And that is really what we are doing. Mm-hmm. And that's how we have changed. And also we brought in a lot more, we've got graphic designers, we've got digital people, we've still got our traditional PR people, but we've got scientists now, medical writers, PhDs, all working in the company. So it's a real eclectic mix of people who are all working together. Mm-hmm. And it's quite a noisy company as well, because we're all very passionate about what we do.
Yeah, that's good to hear. It sounds lively. And what are you looking forward to? What in business? What is it you look forward to, or is it just every day?
I think it's when we do something fantastic for a client, when we deliver some success for a client. So it was a really simple thing, and this got the whole team so excited. And it's like, somebody might go, oh, well, so what? As soon as we went into lockdown, the team from New Cells were going over to an SOT meeting in the US, big toxicology meeting. And this was going to be the point where they really promoted what they were doing. And we'd all worked so hard to this moment. And then, of course, lockdown happened. So we switched the whole thing onto a webinar. And I think, right, okay, fine, a webinar. The number of people that registered for that webinar, literally after the call, after the webinar, Colin Brown was getting emails, contacts. Everybody was saying, I want to talk to you about that. But the big thing was we were getting people from the big pharma companies, which they'd never had access to. So Pfizer, GSK, AstraZeneca, all wanting to talk to New Cells about the products, what they were producing. And for us, for the team, that just excites the team beyond belief.
And how do you explain that compared to face-to-face? I mean, that sounds amazing.
Well, it was amazing. And this is the whole thing. This is where we've gone, because every single piece of survey that you ever see says doctors and customers prefer face-to-face, but they never really define what that face-to-face is. You could never say, is that a rep? Is that an exhibition stand? What is it? Is it talking to a medic? So we have, by doing these webinars, by doing podcasts such as this, we've been able to show you can engage with customers in a different way. And this has led us to actually come up with our immersive learning environment, because we know that the industry is not going to get back into hospitals for a long, long time. They're just nowhere in even thinking about letting the industry in. Travel is going to be restricted for a long time. Congresses, although every congress is saying they're going to operate next year, it's going to be interesting whether they actually do or not. And they're looking at virtual models. So we've created this immersive learning environment, which ultimately is it recreates your congress exhibition stand. And within that, you can enter, and again, this is where we're using augmented reality, or we're using webinars, we're using podcasts, and we're then linking it back to the sales team, customer service, medical information. So a customer can just enter this environment and they can go, and if they want to learn about the product, they can go to the product section and they get all the promotional pieces. If they want to learn from an expert, they can go into a symposium and sit and listen to a webinar, listen to podcasts, read papers. So that's all their learning part of it. It may be that they decide they've got some queries, so they then can contact the different people in the company remotely again. We're also going to be introducing chatbots to them as well, so they can have a conversation and the chatbot can feed back information. So they're getting a responsive opportunity there. And it's been very interesting. We're really promoting this at the moment. And we're, again, Keep It Northeast, we're working with An Immersion from Middlesbrough, who are actually, we know what has to go on the stand, but we can't build it. They've got all the technology to do that. So we're partnering with them to do this and take it forward into the industry. We presented it at the Association of British Healthcare Technologies on Monday, and it blew everybody's mind. And we're just internationally, we're going to go out there. So this is where we see the big future happening. And, I think it'll be fantastic for us. So my associate director's going, oh my God, I'm terrified this can go too big. God, I don't care. We'll do it. We'll sort it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
So what role do you think the Northeast is going to play in the future with regard to pharmaceutical and medtech developments? Do you think it's going to be the Northeast thing?
I think it is a big part of our strategic development as a region. I think we can play a huge part in the future of the UK and global health and life science. We've always been known for manufacturing, and we've got some great manufacturers up here, GSK, we've got Sterling as well, but we're being more known now for some of the interesting technologies that are coming out of the region, supported by the Biosphere or CPI as well. And I think we will start to get recognised, or we need to be recognised for what we can do up here. And it's going to be a key part, I think, of our regional development.
So a little couple of questions to ask at the end, because we'll really have to wrap up. But it's been good talking to you. Which businesses or entrepreneurs do you watch? Is there anybody you like to follow? And, what do you hope to get from them, if anything?
Well, I'm going to be honest, I don't really follow anybody because, and this is it, and I do talk to my younger team about it. When I was first starting up, I used to follow everybody, and I used to be constantly looking over my shoulder, and it made me feel so bad about myself. I stopped doing it.
Good.
So instead, what I do is, if I want to learn about something, I then get onto LinkedIn. I start doing searches. I listen to podcasts. I listen to YouTube videos, things. I'm a real audible person as well. I look for recommendations for books and I listen to them. So I do more self-learning than actually following people.
Yeah. Good. Well, hopefully there'll be people following you.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't mind mentoring people. I love mentoring people and teaching people. Yeah. I love seeing young people shine. That's my big
share that you've got, isn't it?
Yeah.
And people starting up in a business, what would you say is your tip of the week?
My tip of the week would be never give up. Just never ever give up. Just keep going. That's it.
That's it. Good answer.
That is my one single answer, and I've written it down. And when I've gone through tough times, I've written it in massive letters in a book, and it's like, never give up. And I think a lot of people who run their own businesses, you get to a point, you get to that, what I always say, I always call it the 300,000 mark. And that is where you've got to make the big jump. You've got to get through that. And if you get through that, you're on your way. But that point is difficult because you've got to be sure that your business is secure, you're employing people, your overheads are rising. It's a tough moment, and your team has got to work with you to get through that. And we had that in Onyx when we were first starting. Like, we got through it, and our motto was, we're not giving up, we're never giving up.
Mm-hmm. Good. Pleased you didn't.
I'm pleased we didn't as well.
Well, it's been great talking to you this morning, and thanks for giving me your time.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you.